Welcome back to Quarantine History with Mr. Skaggs. So as we continue to be out of school for spring break and COVID-19 break as it's turning into, want to make sure once again that my students, 7th grade history, are not falling behind, not getting the review they need, and if anybody else would find this profitable, go ahead and watch too. So today, guys, we're going to be looking at Standard 717 from the Tennessee State Standards. As I've told you previously, please download this app, TN Standards. Going to link it in the description below. We're going to be looking at Standard 7.17, which says to describe the diffusion of Islam, its culture, and Arabic language. Cool. So, before we do that, let's go ahead and just kind of rewind real quick, make sure we know what we're spreading before we're talking about Islam spreading, and just a quick recap on Islam. So around 600, a guy by the name of Muhammad, living in what we would consider Saudi Arabia today, was a caravan trader. And he did not like the society that he lived in. He lived in the city of Mecca, and he saw a lot of bad stuff happening he didn't like. There was polytheism, people being unkind and cheating each other. He didn't like what he was seeing in society. And then, one day, he receives a message from Allah, which is Arabic for God. And he is told to recite, to write down what he hears, which is cool for a side note because he was illiterate. So that's kind of cool. So he's told to recite these things that he hears. And what he would hear and recite would end up being known as the Quran, which is the holy book of Islam. And in this word that he received, he was told that people need to stop worshiping other gods. They no longer need to be polytheistic, but they need to be what theistic for all my students who know what that term is. The term for worshiping one God is monotheistic. Good job, guys. Good job. So ordering people to be monotheistic, only worship one God, and also to treat people fairly. And he set about spreading this message, and he gained some followers, but the leader of the city didn't like him, so they kicked him out. And so he went into exile and ended up continuing to build some followers and ended up gathering sort of leadership in another town, and an army actually went with him as well. And so he ended up coming back to Mecca and taking control of the city of Mecca, and by about 632 would establish what would be sort of the original Islamic State. Now, do not confuse that with the terrorist organization that we have now. Don't confuse that with what we might have in recent history. This was very different. But his Islamic state, his Islamic run-based society, was established throughout the Arabian Peninsula by about 632. And it's going to continue to grow from there. And so that's what we're picking up now, is the larger spread of this. And we said there's 3 reasons that's going to happen. And it's found in your composition book on the page labeled 717. Boom. If you got that, go get it. If you don't have your composition book over spring break, I would not be upset with you. But if you happen to have your composition book with you, comment down in the comment section that you indeed have your composition book with you on break, because that's cool. Maybe some of you don't think it's cool, but I think it's cool. So, 3 things for the spread of Islam: conquest, preaching, and trade. First up, conquest. After the death of Muhammad, an elected leader of the Islamic State, known as a caliph, was elected. And the caliph's job was to lead the people, and they also believed that it was their job to continue the growth and spread of Islam. And so, as the caliphs would take control of more area, growing their empire, they would take, of course, their religion with them. Now, they did not force people to convert to Islam, unlike other peoples who would take over a land and then force their religion upon them. They did it. More or less, they were, most of the time, were tolerant, which means they accepted other people and didn't force them to convert. They actually made special concessions for people of the book, as they called it, being Jews and Christians, believing that Allah was indeed the same God that they all worship, keeping it all kind of connected together. Many Muslims believe that Jesus Christ was not the Son of God, but an influential prophet nonetheless. So those were people that they got along with, and most of the time they didn't require people to convert to Islam. But there were some advantages, namely, from time to time, you would have to pay a tax if you were not indeed a Muslim. So there was a non-Muslim tax. So if you were cheap and didn't want to pay a tax, you would convert. But also convert for legitimate reasons as well. Another examples of these empires that would go and grow and spread Islam would be the Ottomans and the Moors. So that's the first way, would be to through conquest and growth of the empire. The second way was preaching. And what we see preaching would be mainly from a group within Islam called the Sufis. They were a missionary order of Muslims, and their job was to go out and preach about and share the message of Islam, the Quran, the 5 pillars. And as they did that, they taught a little different than how the caliphs and the Islamic State taught. They taught more of a relationship, an emotional form of Islam, that you could be connected straight to Allah. And one of the examples of how they did that was in their practice. They actually had a form of prayer where they would pray, meditate in this form of a dance. And you can look it up on YouTube. It's pretty cool to watch, called a whirling dervish. And as they would go out and share this religion, the language of Arabic would go along with it, because the Quran was written in Arabic. So if you wanted to learn the religion, you would learn the language as well. As when you talk about conquest. If the people that are in control, if their rules, if their guidelines are in a particular language, you're going to learn that way too. So that's the first 2 ways. And the last one is trade. So Islamic traders would go east all the way out to Indonesia, and they went all the way west over to West Africa and establishing the great city of Timbuktu. And as these traders would go, they became very wealthy and influential as they were looking for things to trade and buy. And how they would spread their religion would be just as they went and traveled. As people would interact with them, the people would question, like, hey, why is it that you pray this many times a day? Why is it that you give a part of your income to those in need? What's up with that? And that would simply give them opportunity to talk about, hey, I'm a Muslim, we do this, we do that. And then how the language would spread this way was, and this is pretty cool, if you want to do business with someone, it's helpful for you to speak the same language. And so people wanted to work with the Islamic traders, the Muslim traders, and so they learned Arabic to speak with them. This is a practice done today. If someone wants to go and do business in China, they're going to learn Mandarin. If someone wants to do business in France, they're going to learn French. If someone wants to come to America, they're going to learn English. So pretty common thing right there. If you want to do business with someone, you will learn their language. And this was beneficial in the spread of the Arabic language right there. So, real quick, those are our 3 ways that Islam spread: conquest, preaching, and trade. Let me know down in the comments section anything else you would like to talk about taught here on Quarantine History with Mr. Skaggs. If you would like some extra material to look at, I would suggest going to mrdoling.com. He's going to has some really cool, simple introductory lessons on particular topics, and you could actually find more things about Arabic culture, the Ottomans, the Moors, which I mentioned earlier, and a lot of other historical things. I occasionally use some of his media in class, so I definitely suggest that as some good baseline information on particular topics. So, until next time, keep learning.